Welcome to Return to Athens. Today the flame begins its journey around the globe. The main stadium's roof is now joined as one. And a Mexican on a marathon mission. All that and more as we return to Athens. Firstly, the Olympic flame has left the home of the Games and will for the first time travel to all 5 continents of the globe on a 6-week tour before eventually returning for the opening ceremony. At the site of the first modern Olympic Games in 1896, the flame, which was ignited in the town of Olympia using a lens to concentrate sunlight, was taken from the cauldron and driven to Athens International Airport, flanked by a police escort. Previous torch relays in Sydney and Atlanta were largely domestic affairs, with a brief international leg. This time, the flame is set to visit Africa and Latin America for the first time, with stops at Cape Town in South Africa and Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Among the highlights will be a mass beach party in Rio, which organisers promise will rival the famous annual Carnival as a spectacle. Future Olympic host Beijing is expected to give a taste of its preparations for 2008 with a procession that leads to the Summer Palace. Thousands of runners who have been selected for inspirational community work will also jog their way into the spotlight. On arrival, Organising Committee President Gianna Angelopoulos Daskalaki boarded the specially commissioned private Boeing 747, appropriately named Zeus, and handed over the flame in a specially designed safety lantern to pilots. Aviation authorities had to issue a special permit to allow the flame to keep burning while it's flying. A team of attendants inside the plane make sure the sacred light of Apollo is never extinguished by accident. The flame returns to Greece on July 9 for a final homecoming tour before entering the Olympic Stadium in the most guarded manner to light the cauldron. First stop on the tour was previous host city, Sydney. The torch on board the Boeing 747 painted in Olympic colours touched down in Sydney at dawn.
We welcome the accompanying passengers from Athens.
The flame emerged, protected carefully inside the special lantern.
Representing the President of the Athens Organising Committee, President Mrs. Gianna Angelopoulos.
Australian officials welcomed Greek officials along with school children from local Greek schools.
The march. The flame then travelled to the Panathinaikon Stadium.
Australian gold medalist Cathy Freeman kicked off the global torch relay with a 400-metre dash down the steps of the Sydney Opera House. Freeman, wearing the official torch relay uniform, emerged from a possum skin cloak into a circle of Indigenous dancers and Greek-Australian schoolgirls acting as high priestesses. They were ringed by olive branches symbolising peace and friendship. Freeman, swollen with pride, is the first person to commence the international leg of the torch relay.
We're very proud to be part of such a merging of cultures, but it's the Samsung Olympic torch is about carrying the flame and uniting the world, so it's how appropriate in the climate of the world.
The torch was carried through the streets of Sydney and included a trip to the top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, as well as returning to the former Olympic Stadium at Homebush Bay.
Down the steps of the Sydney Opera House as the first leg.
More on the torch relay later in Return to Athens. While the flame continues on its history-making journey, eventually it will arrive at the one place that will be the most special of all. That is when it finally arrives at the main stadium on the evening of the 13th of August to commence the games of the 28th Olympiad. And while we're on the main stadium, Athens has perplexed some of her critics by completing the often controversial and futuristic roof with the delicate meeting of 2 giant arches that will eventually support a translucent blue roof. 3 weeks after the first arch moved into place, the second 78-metre high white steel structure slid along tracks to meet that first arch. With the arches in position, the greatest architectural and engineering feat of the Games, workers have now to install thousands of blue carbon panels that will offer shading against soaring summer temperatures. With the associated building works out of the way, it clears the deck for urgent landscaping work around the stadium that still resembles a huge construction site. The roof had been the International Olympic Committee's biggest worry about Games preparations. Many architects regarded the roof as an engineering nightmare, saying moving the structure was bordering on the impossible, mainly because of the weights involved. The two arches span more than 300 metres each and are almost as tall as the Sydney Harbour Bridge and will soon spread across the stadium like a giant blue spider's web. They will carry 18,000 tonnes of panels and lights, as well as broadcasting and security cameras. Organisers were passionate about completing the structure, despite strong opposition from the IOC, ATHOC claiming the Olympic roof as an architectural legacy that will light up the Athens skyline for generations to come. Athlete security remains a major concern, Athens Mayor reassuring Americans.
As a practical politician, I know only too well the difference between vision and realities in concrete politics. We are certainly not perfect, but we are confident that we have done a great job. Confident that we will surprise the world and stage successful and safe Olympic Games.
At a specially convened press conference, Mayor Dora Bakayani sounded upbeat but realistic when asked about security concerns during her whirlwind visit to New York City and the US Capitol. With only weeks to go until the opening ceremony, the Mayor of Athens was desperate to reassure American citizens that her city will be safe.
My greatest concern, I'm the mayor. I'm there to be concerned. And that's my job. And I don't think that you will find any serious mayor around the world telling you that he has no concerns. We will be there, we will be working on it. We know and that we have the best security plan which we could produce. And we believe that we won't even need it, as Greece was never, mind you, threatened for terrorist attacks.
Bakayani sought to highlight how safe the Olympics will be by outlining the ballooning budget, largely due to extra security concerns. Being the first city to host the Games since the September 11 attacks on New York, Athens has had to find lots of extra money to secure the event, which will host 11,000 athletes from more than 200 countries. Greece will spend $1.2 billion on security alone. That's 4 times as much as Sydney did and 5 times that spent on the '96 Games in Atlanta. 70,000 military police will be on hand and NATO will provide air and sea cover during the event. The Mayor played down threats from the local terror group November 17, which authorities blame for recent Athens bomb blasts. She said the only real threat came from international groups such as Al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, a senior official with the American-led consortium setting up the complex security network defended the pace of works.
What's happened over the last number of years is security planning and the security effort has come to the forefront. I don't think anybody wants to acknowledge that because you don't want it to take away from what the Games are supposed to bring to your country. But it is a fact of life.
During the Olympics, infrared and high-resolution cameras will be placed on over 1,200 concrete columns around the capital. Officials say that after the Olympics, the network of computers, cameras and detection devices will give the country's police force one of the most sophisticated security systems in the world. The United States ambassador confident.
Security and the Olympics generally is obviously a Greek responsibility, and we're in a supplementary role to try to be helpful wherever we can. From what I see, things are going well.
Away from security to our In Profile series, and 19-year-old American swimmer Michael Phelps is hoping to become the star of the pool with a record equalling 7 gold medals. Phelps already holds 3 world records.
I like to succeed, and I'll work to succeed. And if I continue to succeed, then I'm having fun. And I mean, being able to train under the best coach in the country, in my opinion, the best coach in the world, is an honor. And you know, he's taken me extremely far, and I think he can hopefully take me even farther.
Phelps currently trains under coach Bob Bowman, but it was another coach from a powerhouse swimming country who gave him much of his motivation. I
like pressure. It makes it fun. You know, last year, one of the Australian coaches said I couldn't do something. And if someone says I can't do something, I'm going to work that much harder to go out there and prove them wrong. So, I mean, it just, for me, it makes it more exciting. It makes it more fun. I mean, I don't think I have anything to lose. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do what I've trained for the last 4 years. And whatever happens, you know, we're going to look back and hopefully be satisfied with it.
Sport is big business. Phelps has a contract that will pay him $1 million if he's able to equal Mark Spitzer's remarkable 7 gold medal haul. The man to stop Phelps' quest is his main rival, Australian star Ian Thorpe. While publicly Phelps says he will be satisfied with just 1 gold, as for his teammates, they're not entirely convinced that 7 gold medals is attainable today.
The sport has progressed a lot since Mark Spitz, and Miguel Phelps is an outstanding swimmer. I have a lot of respect for him. What he's doing for the sport of swimming is benefiting all swimmers in much the same way that Tiger Woods has benefited all golfers. And so, you know, I encourage Michael to, you know, pursue this, what seems to be an unattainable goal of 7 gold medals and 7 world records. I've won a couple gold medals, and it's pretty difficult to do. I can't imagine 7.
I mean, definitely coming home from Sydney with nothing was disappointing for me. I wanted to come home with a medal, but things didn't work out that way. So going into this summer's trials and hopefully Olympics, coming out with a gold medal is my #1 goal. I mean, to be an Olympic champion has always been a dream come true, and just hopefully can live that dream.
While Phelps hasn't yet decided on which events he intends to qualify in, look out for him as he attempts to become swimming's greatest ever Olympian. To lead up news, a newly appointed Indian Sports Minister, Sunil Dutt, met with the national hockey squad before it left for training abroad prior to Athens. The 26-member squad includes former captain Dhanraj Pillai and penalty corner specialist Jagaj Singh. Pillai's recent omission from a 4-nation meeting in Japan created a furore which only calmed after the Indian Hockey Federation said that the mercurial forward was being preserved for the Olympics.
The biggest countries, democratic countries, they today are praising India because if there's real democracy flourishes over here, that happens in this planet, that is India. And that pride we must carry with us. We are not weak people anymore, neither financially, not physically.
The hockey squad will attend training camps in Arizona, the Netherlands and Germany before it heads to Athens. If you'd like to see the Indians in action, you'll need to book a ticket to the Olympic Hockey Centre. Competition is from days 1 until 14. Tickets are reasonably priced. The basic cost is just €10, while the best seats in the house will set you back $60. More athletes in profile, and Adriana Fernandez is, according to the experts, the best female marathon runner to ever come out of Mexico. At 33, she is no stranger to competition at its highest level. But the Mexican lawyer believes that the Games will be her last chance to realise her dream of taking home an Olympic medal. Fernandez began her athletic career in 1995 and has since gone on to achieve a first place in the New York Marathon, as well as victories in the Pan American Games in Mar del Plata, Winnipeg and Santo Domingo. For the veteran long-distance runner, Athens marks the end of a long career in world athletics. She competed at the Atlanta Games in '96 and was unplaced, while she finished 16th at the Sydney Games. This time, the runner is setting her sights much higher, at least on a medal finish. According to her trainer, former marathon runner Rodolfo Gomez, who won the Athens Marathon in 1982, the training is going well, but there is still some time to go before Adriana's big test.
It's going well. Adriana is recovering her form. I think there's a need to curb her a little yet because there's still several weeks of preparation to go before the Olympics. What we're really hoping is that she'll be in good shape for then.
While she is optimistic about improving on her Sydney performance, for Fernandez, competing in Athens marks her last chance for an Olympic medal. Having to train and compete on the world stage for another 4 years to make Beijing at almost 40 years of age is out of the question.
My big expectations are to improve a lot on what I achieved in Sydney. So I hope to be up there fighting for a medal, or at least to be among the first places.
The marathon route is the same as the original race from Marathon to Athens, arriving at the Panathinaikos Stadium. Whilst the women's marathon is on the 22nd of August, the men's is on the final day of competition. The medal presentation for that event held at the main stadium just prior to the closing ceremony. Some of Australia's main medal hopes rest with its rowing team, particularly the women's quad scull, the lightweight double and the 8 crews. Rowing Australia adopted a policy of targeting key events for Athens as early as 2001, with crews such as the women's pair and single scull not being formed until the rowers missed out on spots in other boats. Women's team coach Harold Jarling said it was up to the women to work hard and qualify.
We're definitely on target and definitely reaching our goals, before we head overseas, so it's good.
Joanna Lutz and Kirsten Winkley have less than 2 weeks to form a combination and cast aside the disappointment of missing a berth in the 8 crew.
Going really well. I mean, we still don't know how we'll go once we get overseas and obviously race the rest of the world, but for our own goals we've just been making sure that we're quite patient with it and making sure that we just try and improve on something every session, and it's been a really good way to look at it, just one session at a time, not getting too far ahead of ourselves.
The duo will now race the pairs event at a qualifying regatta in Switzerland, needing a top 2 finish to secure a start in Athens, while single sculler Danielle Jolly needs to finish in the top 3 at the event. Australia, which has 12 of 14 boats already qualified for Athens, are expected to be one of the strongest rowing nations at the Games. The men's 8 train at the Sydney Games venue, with veteran Mike Mackay upbeat about their chances in an event in which they have never won gold.
But look, there's some good stiff competition overseas. We noticed some of the early regattas, the 8's the highest prognostic event out of all the events, which is the highest standard. So that's sort of interesting to know straight away that it's not a walk in the park. But I think that we're happy that we've got a good group of guys, and training's going along well, and because we won't have any regattas beforehand, we really won't know until we get there.
The rowing events will be held at the Skinius Olympic Rowing Centre over 9 days of the Games from the 14th of August until the 22nd. Returning to news on the torch relay, and the Olympic flame has travelled through Australia's second largest and first Olympic city, Melbourne. Crowds lined the streets which hosted the 56 Olympics to cheer the runners who carried the torch in a relay to the famous Melbourne Cricket Ground, the main stadium during the 56 Games. Melbourne's huge Greek community turned out in force along the 60-kilometre route to wave the Greek flag as the flame made its way to the city's Federation Square. The city is famous for its large Greek population. It's been said that outside of Athens, the second largest Greek community is in fact in Melbourne. Melbourne is home to a vast number of sporting events, including the Australian Open Tennis, the Formula One Grand Prix, as well as horse racing's richest 3,200-metre handicap, the Melbourne Cup, and was runner-up as host to the 1996 Games held in Atlanta. The Olympic flame continued its 6-week journey, arriving in Tokyo just in time for the first day of the Japanese rainy season. Torrential rain failed to dampen Japanese enthusiasm as the flame touched down in the city which hosted the 1964 Games. Amid heavy security, former baseball player Kazushige Nagashima was the first torchbearer on the 53-kilometre run which began near Tokyo Bay. Olympic speed skating champion Hiroyasu Shimizu and Kyoko Iwasaki, who won swimming gold at the 92 Barcelona Games, were among 136 participants. Next week we travel to the South Korean capital Seoul, which staged the Games in 1988. The flame, lit from the sun's rays, will travel to 33 cities in the 5 continents represented by the Olympic rings. Time now for us to end this edition, but remember to keep watching Return to Athens as we bring you the latest in the behind-the-scenes news and views in the lead-up to Athens 2004.